for the people who have given us so much by applying for this project, and for the city of Redmond itself, which really has benefited more by the sustained effort in the literary arts, I think, than most people know. It's very easy when something works fairly seamlessly not to realize what's going on, but I've been involved in literary arts in Redmond for almost 12, 15 years, I know. And it's gone on, and we've seen people come and we've seen people go, and we've seen really some very, very wonderful poets and prose writers too come through the city and launch off into careers sometimes. So we really hope that this is a way for us to give back. Now I'm more or less going to read what I've got to say because I am rocking a great cough tonight, so I'm gonna just take it easy and lay back and largely read what I'm saying to you. It's hard to write about a city like Redmond, to write poetry at least. Poetry wants timelessness, to preserve things in a particular kind of amber, distorted through the poet's eyes, yes, but distorted in a way that makes them feel more real than they are, that reminds the reader or the listener of something that he thought, but he didn't know he thought about that corner he drives past every day, the park in which he played as a child, the hills and the rivers and sloughs and lakes and trees that seem to go on forever. But cities are about change. Trees are felled, rivers and sloughs are fished, and homes replace the tree-lined banks. The long shores are divided into properties so that even a long walk gets truncated by the fear of trespassing. In 100 years and more, because really the only thing about Redmond that's only 100 years old is its charter, few things do remain constant, untouched, and many become lost or rendered unrecognizable. Cities are often in danger of becoming the victims of their founder's vision. No city was ever founded with the words, "We'll live here and keep it just the same as it always was." Humans live with a purpose, with longings for themselves and their children, and those longings are always built on the detritus of what went before. Picasso is said to have remarked every act of creation is first an act of destruction. And where a city is concerned, that cycle has to repeat itself again and again to destroy what was in order to build what will carry us forward. That's life, giving birth to itself again and again, ever evolving with concurrent sadness for the loss and hope for what's gained. And yet, in a carefully crafted city, the influence of what was remains an important part of its identity and voice. The new is shaped by the old. That shaping is a part of the project that brings us here today. The poets I'll be introducing in a few minutes will spend the next several months crafting pieces that are inspired by the photos we've been seeing here. Images of this place as it changed and grew in ways that its earlier inhabitants could hardly have imagined, and yet many of whom lived to see. We'll be taking these images of Redmond and writing to them in many different ways, perhaps to their story, perhaps just to the image itself as it shows the essence of something that people anywhere might think or do. We're not writing as historians, but as poets, as modern sensibilities building something of our own upon these images in the same way that farms were built on the forests and houses and businesses built on the farms. By June, we may have as many as 70 pieces that we hope will inspire others so that the conversation goes on. My vanity hopes in another 100 years someone will look back on our project and use it to create something that we can't even imagine in a place that we wouldn't recognize, but that hasn't forgotten us because of what we're creating here. This project will be the last in my time as Redmond's Poet Laureate, so I thought I'd say a bit about my time in that office. I've been asked as it winds down whether I think the idea was a good one, and whether I feel my vision for helping the city to find its own voice has borne fruit. I think it has, but I also think that the continued use of the written and spoken word is important as a way to define a place, not to label it and to use it, but to bring its essence forth, to add ourselves to that essence, and then to hand the result down to whomever follows us, be it our flesh and blood children, or just the children of the place, the inheritors of what we do and say here today. And this is what I hope that the anthology will become, a way to celebrate Redmond's 100th year as a city, but also to create a dialogue of sorts with the past, to look back and see it through today's eyes, to add ourselves to it, and to pass it forward in the hope that it will continue to be added to in years to come. So in that spirit, I'm going to read a portion of a poem that I'm working on. It's hard to read a portion of a poem, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is something that I hope by the end of this project will be a multi-part poem about change and about how this city is built from that repeated cycle of new created from old. Of change, yes, but the kind of change that carries with it the essence of what went before, the recognition that people are people, and their hopes, desires, and the stories they tell about themselves are very much the same, and that's what makes Redmond its own unique place, its own unique voice. Now I'll tell you, let me sip some water and I'll tell you the inspiration for the poem.